Hi there, and welcome to my Co-op 3100 video about lifelong learning. Throughout my internship, I feel that I've learned many new skills, but there's really one that stood above the rest, and that was the ability to give a good presentation, because this skill is something that you can use in any industry. Instead of just speaking about how to give a good presentation, I decided to actually present it to show how to do these skills in real time. So with that being said, let's begin. Did you know that according to a study done by Forbes, 70% of American employers believe giving captivating presentations is a crucial skill for work success? This statement was surprising to me, and it demonstrates how important this skill is. But within this presentation, it has a secondary purpose. This type of statement is provocative. It invokes curiosity within the audience, and it grabs their attention. This type of hook statement is a critical aspect of a good presentation starter. It helps gain the audience's attention, and now the goal is to figure out how to maintain it. And there are actually three ways that we can do that. The first is through very nicely designed slides. The second is articulating well and having a good speaking voice. And finally, engaging the audience with body language. So let's begin with the slides. The first, of course, is the point of having less text and more slides. Really, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So really just reduce the amount of text that you have on your slide. It'll make your presentation all that more interesting. The next is to speak about your slides, not read off of them. So this is the thing that's really important. A lot of people get stuck in just reading off what their slide is saying and not really adding more value to it. So just put a couple key points and then build upon that. The next is to group information in sets of 3 when possible. Having things grouped in sets of 3 is a really good number. It's not too few and not too many. It allows the audience to really understand what you're talking about. But obviously, in certain circumstances, that doesn't work. So only really apply it when you can. But if you can, try to apply it. The next is never putting information that isn't spoken to. Now, this is really important. If you have statistics or graphs or any type of significant visual, make sure you're speaking about that. You can't leave information on a slide that you don't reference. It's very jarring to the audience, and it makes them feel like they're missing something within your presentation. And finally, maintain consistency. So this means keeping a consistent style, consistent fonts, themes, whatever it is amongst your entire presentation. You want a cohesive image that is being displayed to the audience. And next, let's move on to your voice. So the first key part is to avoid being monotone. There are a lot of ways that you can actually avoid this. The first is by changing your intonation, your pitch, your volume, or even stressing key words. And all those things just adds more variance to the words you're saying and the sentences. The next is to aim for the golden zone in speaking. That is 20 to 25 words per 10 seconds. Now, obviously, it's difficult to always track this, but once you get started used to doing that pace, it's really easy to maintain. And the reason you want to keep within that range is it's not too fast and it's not too slow. It's really the perfect presentation speed that you should be aiming for. Now, of course, that number 20 to 25 is conditional on the presentation. For example, if you're presenting to an audience that maybe isn't as technically adept in a certain field and the concepts are very technically heavy, you may actually want to reduce it to closer to 17 to 22 words in 10 seconds. That pace might just be enough to help them understand the material all the better. But of course, it's all about knowing your audience and knowing how fast they want to receive their information. The next is to reduce filler words. And by filler words, I mean things such as like, as, kinda, sorta. All those type of words just reduce your overall quality of the presentation and your credibility. And I'll be speaking a little bit later about how you can actually add techniques to remove those filler words. And finally, enunciation and inflection. By enunciation, I mean speaking extremely clearly, especially when you're dealing with terms that may not be used in everyday speech. Also, if you're presenting virtually, make sure you're using a headset rather than speaking directly into your laptop's built-in speakers, built-in microphone. This just helps make your voice all the clearer. And finally, inflection. By inflection, I mean not ending your sentence on a high note. So this is something that I do often, and it's known as upspeaking. So I'll say a sentence, and on the last word, I'll actually intonate slightly higher pitch rather than keeping it neutral with the rest of the sentence. And it makes it sound like I'm always asking a question rather than making a statement. So that's something that I currently am working on fixing, but I've noticed it happen with a lot of different presenters. So I figured I'd mention it here. And finally, let's move on to body language. So the first thing, of course, is eye contact. Eye contact is critical to gaining your audience's attention and making sure you maintain it throughout the presentation. But what's important to know is how to scan the room. So by this, I mean speaking a few sentences to one person, then transitioning your eyes over and speaking to someone else. Now, the premise of this is that it gives your brain a couple seconds to sort of reformat and get new information in. This is what really helps reduce your filler words. Just taking a half second or second pause is all you need to just really reduce those number of words pretty much down to zero. Really great skill to try. If you're doing it virtually, make sure you look at the screen, then you take a second break, look up, and then look back down, rather than looking down at your screen and then back up. If you look down at your screen, it makes you look like you're looking at notes or something else that's happening on your screen, rather than actually focusing on the audience. The next is adding hand gestures. So hand gestures are another great way to sound less monotone. Simply by opening up your hands and using them when you speak, just really liven up your voice and add new volume and depth to what you're saying. But when doing this, make sure you use open hand gestures. By that, I mean things where you're opening your hands when you're speaking and not closing them off. If you close off your hands or you point aggressively, it is very negative towards the audience and it seems very stern. Instead, keep your hands open and make sure to never use one finger. And finally, my takeaways from this. The first is that presentations have a lot of nuances that I didn't know about. There are a lot of key things that you have to remember and a lot of new techniques that I still need to learn. The second is, of course, maintaining my golden zone. I often find myself erring closer to the 25 words per 10 seconds, if not higher. So that's something that I'm really working on, is reducing my speed to really sit at really the 22 to 23 words. The next is reducing my upspeak, as I mentioned earlier. It's something that I still notice, but I'm consistently working towards fixing every day. And finally, I really want to make better slide visualizations. So things like infographics really add new depth to a good presentation. And that's something that I want to add into my presentation skills. And I think it's something that really is lacking in a lot of presentations that I see. But overall, thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's been informative on how to make a really good presentation. And I hope you can take these skills and apply them both virtually and in person. And thank you very much.